Hello and welcome to MalMakes. Today we're going to be making a pumpkin pie. I've wanted to do some baking on my channel for a while, and because of the holidays, I thought now is a good time to do so. And the perfect thing to start with is my spicy pumpkin pie. The first thing you're going to want to do is gather all of your ingredients. I've put their amounts and what you need down in the description. And the second thing you want to do is preheat your oven to 425 Fahrenheit. In a small bowl, I'm going to be mixing the sugar, the salt, and all the spices. And for the sugar, I like to use dark brown sugar because it has the most flavor. It has a higher molasses content than like a light brown sugar. So because I want this pie to be spicy and flavorful, I'm using the dark brown sugar. I need 3/4 of a cup of dark brown sugar, and when you're measuring dark brown sugar, you need to pack it into the cup, kind of like it's sand and you're building a sandcastle. So I put the 4th cup in the bag, scoop some, and then kind of push it from the outside to make sure it's packed down into the scoop. That way I have a nice tight pack of a 1/4 of a cup of dark brown sugar. And then I'm just going to do that 2 more times, so I have 3/4 of a cup. Our next ingredient is salt, and I'm going to measure out 1/2 teaspoon. And in order to make sure I have the right amount, I tend to pour a little bit into my hand and then measure it from here so I can make sure I have the right amount and not pour too much extra accidentally into everything else. Now we start adding all of our spices. The first one is cinnamon, and I'm going to be adding 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. Now these teaspoons are going to be kind of flat teaspoons, not rounded. But if it's hard to kind of get the top flattened off, it's okay if it's just a little bit rounded. Next is 1/2 teaspoon of ginger, 1/4 teaspoon of ground cloves, 1/4 teaspoon of allspice. We also need 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. Now I like to use freshly ground nutmeg because it has a stronger flavor, and the goal is to have a spicy pumpkin pie. So I'm going to be using my microplane and grate enough of this nutmeg so I have 1/2 teaspoon. Freshly ground nutmeg smells amazing. And now that I'm adding my last spice, I'm just going to take a fork and mix this up. Now I'm going to set my sugar mixture aside and beat 2 eggs in the larger bowl. I don't want to whip these eggs. I just kind of want to break them up until they're all kind of the same consistency. And what I'm going to add to that is 1 can of pure pumpkin and the sugar and spice mixture. At this step, I need to add in my pure vanilla, and I just need a dash or 2. I need to add it now instead of back when I was doing the other spices because it is a liquid and it would just kind of clump everything up together. So I'm just going to kind of drizzle in a little bit of vanilla. The last thing I need to do is take a 12-ounce can of evaporated milk and add it in stages. I'm going to shake it up first and then just put a little bit in, mix it, put a little bit more in, mix it, and keep going until I have a nicely blended mixture. If I put this all in at once and turned on my mixer, the liquidness of the evaporated milk would just kind of go everywhere and I would make a huge mess. So I'm going to do this in stages. Now, depending on your mixer, you may have the same problem that I have. Mine is way too fast for this, and I end up doing a lot of it by hand. But luckily, it's so liquid, it's really easy to do, and I can just do it with a rubber spatula, but a whisk would work really well for that. And now that this is all mixed up, I can put it in my pie shell. I've made plenty of pie crusts from scratch, And while they do have different qualities to them compared to the store-bought stuff, with this pumpkin pie it has so much flavor that I really don't notice that I've used something different. So I'm just going to use my store-bought crust and shape it to my pie pan here and make sure that I fill all of the edges, just lightly stretching it and pressing it into place. And I'm just going to take a sharp knife and cut off the edge. I don't really have space on this pie plate to kind of make a nice edge, so I just kind of cut it level with my pan. The next step is to pour the filling into the pie crust, but because the filling is so liquidy, I'm liable to spill it on the way to the oven. So I like to take my pie crust and set it on the oven rack by itself, and then pour the filling into it right there in the oven. Once I'm done with that, I'm gonna bake it for 15 minutes at 425, reduce the heat to 350, and cook it an additional 30 to 50 minutes. I baked the pie for 15 minutes, reduced the temperature, and I baked it another 45 until it was done. The way you know if it's done between that 35 and 50 minute window is you take a knife, you put it into the middle of the pie, pull it out, and see if it's clean. If it's pretty clean like this one is, that way you know your pie is done. And it's time to take it out of the oven, put it on a wire rack like this one for 2 hours. After 2 hours, it's cooled enough to put in the fridge or serve, and then you have a lovely spiced pumpkin pie. Again, the recipe is in the description, and this being my first baking video here on MalMakes, I'm curious what you thought and what you'd like to see me make in the future. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of MalMakes, and I'll see you again here for another MalMakes video.